Hello, everyone, and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Jacqui Felgate. Joining me, as always, Luke Darcy, Joe Stanley and Dr. Nick Carr. Hello.
Hey, Jack. Good to see you.
We're counting down today to the Paris Olympic Games, which, amazingly, are just 10 weeks away. I can't wait.
The city of Paris lights up from July 26th. I think it's going to be the most beautiful Olympics ever. Did you know that the beach volleyball is going to be underneath the Eiffel Tower? Amazing.
And this is the third time, Joe, that Paris has hosted an Olympic Games, and about 450 of Australia's finest athletes and swimmers and runners are going to be there competing. But I love the new sports, skateboarding, surfing and even breakdancing.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned a few new events there, Darcy, and it's all about broadening the appeal of the Olympics to the younger people. Now, events we won't see coming back: baseball, softball, karate. But do you know the one I really want to see included at some point is ultimate frisbee, which my younger daughter Olivia is passionate about.
You're really into some weird sports. Also, they're going to include a sport called sport climbing, which is essentially rock climbing. But what a perfect segue into one of our themes for today, which is movement and mobility.
It's a good sport, sport
Have
climbing.
you done that?
Oh, I haven't done it, but it is great to watch. Our own Luke Hines heads along to the Australian Fitness Expo to check out all things working out.
We reveal the little-known but surprisingly common heart condition that makes some people exercise intolerant.
Big events like the Olympics and Paralympic Games, to me, showcase just how far humans have evolved, and we see records smashed every single Games.
And you mentioned the Paralympics, Darcy, and medical technology has advanced so far with things like prosthetics and assisted devices, which are helping our athletes and actually everybody else be the best they can.
Including here in Australia, where amazing advances in prosthetics have seen amputees reach new levels of independence. Take a look.
From a young age, Mike Rolls has been a man on the move.
Well, growing up in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne, how can you not be active? My life revolved around sport, and that was probably largely led by my old man, who was a good cricketer, and then I ended up playing cricket and footy and just about anything I could.
But it was during an end-of-season footy trip in 2001 that Mike nearly lost his life.
We went across to Hobart in Tasmania, but somewhere along the line on that football trip, I caught the really nasty and sinister meningococcal disease, which basically left me in a coma and then cost me initially my right leg below my knee, most of my left leg, a couple of fingers. It's fair to say, as an 18-year-old kid that's physically active, sports mad, to find yourself in an amputee ward, trying to pick up the pieces and learn how to walk again was pretty tough.
Adjusting to life with an artificial right leg took enormous strength. But as time went on, Mike found that his remaining left leg was causing him more troubles than the prosthesis.
So I was left with a leg that would never heal. It was cut right way through sort of the arch in the foot, and it would break down all the time. And I would always make excuses and say, oh, it could always be worse. And I think deep down I was just avoiding, facing up to the situation that I was in. I think push came to shove where I ended up getting an infection in the bone, and they said to me, hey, listen, I think one thing you should probably consider is other options, because this isn't going to heal itself. So I made a really tough decision, and I decided to get rid of that leg that was holding me back. It wasn't an easy one. I wanted to bail plenty of times in the lead up to that operation, but eventually I underwent the surgery, had my leg taken away below the knee, and about 5.5 weeks later, after it healed, I was able to stand up for the first time in 8 or 9 years, pain-free, which was a pretty amazing experience. And I think that opened the doors to a lot of great opportunities.
Hey, slow down.
Now that I didn't have a wound that I was dealing with and a leg that I was limping on all the time, I could then look at, well, what else can I do? And one of the things that I wanted to do for plenty of time was to try and run again. What a great experience to try and run again. So I got fitted with prosthetics that were specifically designed for running. And then it was about accessing water. So I had a prototype made for prosthetics that allowed me to access the water. It sounds crazy when people say, now, Mike, you've got one leg left and now you're going to chop that off. And I'm like, yeah, I am. It's going to be fantastic. And that's kind of how I felt, but they all thought I was crazy. But it was absolutely the best decision I made. And I made it, I've got to be honest with you, I made it based on the amazing prosthetic technology that was available. And I thought about that leg that I was, dragging along with me for so long. And my regret now, I look back and I can honestly say my biggest regret was not doing it sooner.
Mike's radical decision allowed him to return to the active lifestyle he's always cherished. But the high-tech legs he gets around on today are a far cry from what was on offer just a couple of decades ago.
When I first started in prosthetics, I was actually kind of shocked and disappointed at the sophistication of the technology that we were using. It was really basic.
Royal Melbourne Hospital head of prosthetics, Mark Graff, says that many of the key developments in his field have been the result of historic spikes in public awareness.
There are times when there are bursts of interest and funding and research that are due to things like war, because obviously in a war there's loss of limb, and there is that motivation to look after soldiers. But in countries like Australia and the US and the UK, 80% of the cause of amputation is actually vascular issues, and generally on a background of diabetes.
A recent increase in demand alongside rapid advancements in computer science has ushered in a new golden age in prosthetic technology, in which Mark and his colleagues can customise their creations to suit individual needs and lifestyles.
The first thing we have to do is talk to them, find out how they would like to use the prosthesis, where they would like to use the prosthesis, in what environment. Do they want to go to the beach? Do they live in far north Queensland? I think it matters, like, how close to us do they live? We've had lots of changes in the materials that we use. We're using a lot more glass and carbon fibre, titanium, aluminium, plastics are in the design, and the purpose there is to make them light and strong.
When I fatigue on this side, my foot does tend to go in.
One of many Australians to benefit from these enormous steps forward is Melissa Noonan, founder of the amputee support organisation Limbs for Life.
I lost my leg in a trauma accident, 2003. I went to board a train and the doors closed, and I went between the train and the platform. And prosthetics back in those days, we're talking 20 years ago, were really basic, very mechanical, quite clunky. I remember thinking at the time, how am I going to get used to this? So this prosthesis was my second leg. It's the leg that I was discharged from rehab on. The foot is very stiff. It has no movement in the ankle or the foot whatsoever. The knee has no stability in it. In fact, it is like a door hinge. It just collapses. So you can imagine that if you're walking and you trip, there's no resistance there. Nothing is going to save you. You're actually going to hit the deck. With the old mechanical devices, I was probably burning 65% more energy just using and driving that leg. And that combined with the lack of feeling stable and the fact that it could collapse under me, you're always sort of a little bit on edge that could happen. So you're mentally exhausted from the level of concentration, and it's actually really hard to have a conversation where your attention is fully focused on what you're trying to say, if that makes sense, because if you're standing, you're always wanting to make sure that weight alignment is exactly the same and stable the whole time.
And one more time up and back for me, Mel. When you get down to this end, would you mind taking a seat in the chair for me, please?
Yep.
After 4 taxing years walking with a basic mechanical knee, in 2008, Melissa participated in a trial for a device that would revolutionise the world of prosthetics, a computerised hydraulic knee.
I remember wearing it for the first full day and just thinking, I'm not exhausted anymore. Like, I'm not mentally. I can have a conversation with someone after 8 o'clock at night and actually be engaged in that discussion.
And stand back up for me again, please.
I have what's called an X3 Genium now, and this prosthesis it's even more advanced than the last one. So my last one, I used to have to charge it every night. This one, I probably get about 6 days without charging it. I can actually, on my mobile phone, program the resistance. I can change walking speed, so I can go fast and go slow. This has actually got a sensor built into the ankle, so it knows if I'm going to fall, and their leg locks, so it basically prevents falls. Ever since I've had this, I've never had a fall.
Today, amputees across Australia are living more independent and active lives than ever before. But for those who lose a limb later in life, these game-changing devices often remain out of reach.
Funding for people under 65 is covered by the National Disability Insurance Scheme, but a lot of the most vulnerable people in our country have difficulty accessing funding. you know, it can lead to long-term social isolation. They don't feel confident going out, and the older we get, the more fragile and frail we become. So, you know, I struggle to imagine what someone who was maybe, you know, 70 or 75 walking on my very first prostheses and try and feel confident out in the community would be really, really difficult.
I think that anyone that acquires a disability or is even born with a disability faces a whole host of barriers that they can't change, and they've just got to deal with them. But there's certainly barriers, I believe, that are movable. And I think that technology and access to technology is absolutely something that is a removable barrier. It's hard enough living life with a disability. If we can make people's lives easier using technology, regardless of age, circumstance, whatever situation they're in, then I think we should absolutely do that.
Coming up, the heart condition that makes some people struggle to exercise. Plus, we put our backs into working out with trainer Vicky Little. We'll see you after this. Anything we can do to get more people active and on a level playing field is a great thing, and that goes for gender equality in sport too.
Agree, Joe. This time at the Olympics, for the very first time ever, men and women will compete in equal numbers, so a 50-50 gender split, and about time.
You're right, Jack, because when women first took part in the Olympics, Paris 1900, it was only 2% of the athletes. By 1984, around about a quarter, so 50-50 in 2024. We've come a long way, and about time too.
Yeah, as you said, Jack, long overdue, and lucky that's happening now. Speaking of the Olympic Games, it does inspire us all to get healthier and fitter, which I think is a good thing.
Not just sit on the couch and watch.
I thought we could be an Olympic athlete. Now's our turn. Here's Luke Hines at the Australian Fitness Expo, showcasing all things working out.
If you're looking for inspiration to get fit, this event will have you jumping for joy. From watching other people do the hard yards to pitting yourself against some of the best, or simply getting inspiration for what you could be. It's all here, and this is the man who makes it all happen, Sean Krenz.
It's just a massive celebration of all the different fitness communities kind of coming together in the same place at the same time. That's the core of our strategy. So really that's the ultimate objective for us, is to just bring everyone together with the one common theme of fitness.
But it's not just about looking great on the outside. Behind every fit body, there's an incredible story, like from powerlifter Dana Livesay.
I had an eating disorder for a long time, and it took me years and years of training and therapy to get to where I am now. But everything I do comes from a much healthier place towards my health and fitness goals and all of my training, and it's just totally transformed the way that I see health.
I think a lot of people worry about how they look. I think with the pressures of social media, what do you say to people who are fixated on the looks over how they feel?
I absolutely agree with that. I'm actually a coach, and the first thing that most people tell me when I meet them is that they hate the way they look and they want to look like the people they see on social media, and it's so heartbreaking to see so often. And I guess my biggest piece of advice is to find things that you love doing because you love doing them, and not focusing on all the external things about you, because people get so caught up in trying to change the way that they look as opposed to actually living a good quality of life. So yeah, for me that was powerlifting. I love powerlifting so much, and that helped me take focus off of the way that I looked and just focused on what my body could do.
They say that starting is the hardest part in finding fitness. I know that better than anyone, as does one of the most recognised people in the fitness game, Sam Wood.
I'm all about progress, not perfection. I think the biggest mistake people make is they try to do too much too quickly, and it's unrealistic, it's unsustainable, and they don't last. You want to create long, consistent, lifelong habits. Getting in shape shouldn't have a finish line. I think if you do it in a more sustainable, progressive manner, that's when you have the best results.
Great advice, and I tell you what, the results speak for themselves, because you've changed the lives of more than 500,000 people with your 28 by Sam Wood program. Why do you make it such an achievable number?
You know, you see New Year's resolutions, they don't normally work. you see 50-kilo weight loss goals. It's too big a mountain to climb. But if you can say to someone, we're going to lose 4 kilos in 4 weeks, they gain confidence, they gain momentum, they gain self-belief. And when they build those 4-week blocks together, all of a sudden a huge mountain broken up into little steps is far more achievable.
I want to talk about 28 Go. You're here at the Chemist Warehouse stand. Tell us about these new bars.
Something that I hear on a daily basis from people when I talk to them about their nutrition is they're just not getting enough protein in. And I know you should get it from a real food source if you can, but that's just not realistic for a lot of people. So giving them a quality powder or bar they can put in their smoothies or put in their pancakes or grab a bar on the go is what this range is all about. And I think if you can give them a great protein product that they can pick up when they're in the store on a weekly basis anyway, that's going to make their life a lot easier.
Events like these are chock full of health and nutrition information, with the opportunity to get real advice from real people, just like Dana and Sam. But there's also the unknown, people who work just as hard in becoming the very best they can be.
The key reasons people come to the Fitness Expo is to have a fun day out, first and foremost. They want to be inspired. They want to uncover some new trends. They want to have interactive experiences. They don't want to just walk onto an exhibitor stand and be sold to. They want to participate in something, compete for a competition, meet and greet their favourite athlete. So for us, coming together under that common theme of fitness with that same mission to kind of heighten the importance of health and well-being overall, that's why this is just a beautiful thing and feels as good as it does right now.
Sean's not wrong. This place is really jumping. And when you're not sampling some of the best munchies and sports drinks on offer, there's always the entertainment. It's up to you to be a part of it. Or just watch, and let me tell you, there's plenty to see. Not every day a powerlifter goes head-to-head with a Carr. All this inspiration makes me feel almost invincible. I mean, I reckon I'm pretty fit, and I'm feeling pretty lucky. So $1,000, here I come.
888 is the score to beat. Coming in with the first swing. Slams it down.
Better leave the hammering to the big hitters. It's back to the kitchen for me.
Das, I know you love your meditation. You're a calm kind of guy, and it is important to relax and express ourselves. But there's that moment where we feel red-hot anger sometimes, don't you think? For me, it's at the supermarket when you go to park the car and someone cuts you off.
Try to be calm, Jack, but I still get fired up by an overly aggressive male or someone being rude to a waiter really gets me, or people getting on the horn in traffic unnecessarily. That gets me really fired up. So it's still a work in progress.
Road rage. Well, we all have anger, of course, but it's how we manage it that matters. It's all about releasing your anger in a non-harmful way, and Japanese researchers reckon they've found the perfect technique.
And, Jack, they say writing down a negative reaction to an angry moment and then getting rid of that bit of paper can actually get rid of the angry response entirely.
And researchers thought it would lessen that anger, but it turns out it got rid of it completely by writing it down. It's kind of like putting someone's name in the freezer and putting them on ice.
Well,
I love
Jack,
that.
It's brilliant. And anything that reduces your blood pressure and your heart is a good thing, I think, just like regular exercise. But there is a little known but common heart condition that actually makes regular exercise a real struggle for some.
What happens to the heart during atrial fibrillation is that it is an irregular, chaotic heart rhythm. We have 4 chambers of our heart, and atrial fibrillation particularly affects these top chambers. In a normal, healthy heart, we actually see it all contract together. It squeezes that blood from the top chamber down to the bottom chamber, and then that bottom chamber then contracts and pushes that blood to the rest of the body. In atrial fibrillation, we don't have a full contraction, which then reduces the amount of blood that we can then push around to the rest of the body. The symptoms that people with atrial fibrillation can experience are palpitations, shortness of breath, fatigue, something called exercise intolerance, which is a difficulty to do their everyday activities. They can feel dizziness or fainting. in Australia, it's about 2% of the population will actually experience AF, so it's quite a large number of people. And worldwide, we're starting to see that's actually forming into a bit of a global epidemic because the numbers of atrial fibrillation tend to increase every single year. You have some people who have very rare episodes. It might happen a couple of times a year, for instance, but then we also have people who are experiencing atrial fibrillation for hours or days on end, or if not in a permanent state of being in atrial fibrillation. The reason that atrial fibrillation is quite dangerous is because when our top chamber can't actually contract properly, our blood actually slows down in that top chamber, and it actually allows for blood clots to easily form in that part of the heart, which then increases our risk of strokes substantially. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, we'll go up to usual jogging pace, all right? So at the moment, I'm currently conducting an exercise study here at Deakin. A lot of the research in the past in atrial fibrillation has really focused on the heart, and we don't know a lot about what else is happening in the wider cardiovascular system, which could actually, in fact, be impacted by this condition. So what we are seeing in our preliminary findings is that actually people living with atrial fibrillation actually have far lower blood flow in their muscle compared to those who don't live with atrial fibrillation, which actually might be a bit of a key to unlocking some of the signs and symptoms that they actually experience, particularly the fatigue, the shortness of breath, and the exercise intolerance that they experience. So what we're looking at here is your thigh muscle here over the top. All these bubbles here are showing us actually all your small blood vessels here in your thigh muscle. One of the key benefits that we are starting to see from emerging research is that if a person engages in regular exercise, and it's usually these people who have been couch potatoes beforehand and starting to get involved in exercise, is that they do experience less time in being in atrial fibrillation and experiencing less episodes. So it's really great to see very early evidence coming out showing this. We also know it improves their quality of life, their ability to do their everyday activities. It also improves their overall fitness, mental well-being, and we're also beginning to find out that it also can improve the many risk factors that a lot of these individuals present with, which actually then progress the actual condition. So the fact that exercise has a plethora of benefits and not just a sort of one pill, just sort of targeting one thing, as a pretty incredible thing about exercise.
Now, Dr. Nick, I'm not always able to get to the gym or go for a run, so I needed an exercise I could do at home daily very easily. So I have started a daily planking challenge.
Oh, well done, because holding the plank position is great for core muscle strength, which is crucial for mobility, stability, reducing the risk of injury.
So the longer you hold the plank, the better, and there is a new world record set by 59-year-old Canadian woman.
Now, just let me ask you, Jo, how long can you hold a plank for?
Well, at the moment, I'm on like 60 seconds.
Well, that's pretty good, but Donna Jean Wild held a plank for an incredible 4 hours, 30 minutes and 11 seconds.
So boring.
Just extraordinary. Her husband says she even planks while she's watching movies.
I'm not surprised. But how does she eat her popcorn?
Now, that's the question.
Well, here's trainer Vicky Little with how to put your back into building that core strength. And yes, it does involve planking.
Of all the complaints about injuries, the one I hear most often is related to the lower back. A twist in the wrong direction, working in the garden, even just bending down to pick something up. It can be that simple. So why not reduce your risk with some moves to strengthen your lumbar? Don't underestimate any kind of movement in strengthening your spine. Walking, increasing your steps, taking a long and short walk at different times of the day. Whatever it is, commit. Regular exercise is the most effective way to prevent lower back pain. Before you start building muscle, unlock your spine, lower back and hips with a cat-cow. First, arch your back, and then drop your belly and lift your head. Exercises should target the core. That's the collection of muscles that wrap around your abdomen and support your spine. And when you think about it, your spine is like a brace that holds you upright. It's why a real brace helps to relieve back pain, because it gives that added support. Is that 30 seconds yet? Oh. The key is to strengthen the muscles around the spine. So if you do move in an unusual way, there's less chance of straining a muscle. And yes, you do get to lay down. Use your core, take it slow, and when you're ready, crank it up a notch. Even something as simple as this. Pull your shoulder blades together and breathe. It's great for the upper back, and you can do it at your desk. This movement engages every stabilizing muscle in your core to stay balanced. You might have to work up to this one. Finish off with a classic downward dog to stretch the glutes, hammies, and lower back. Even the fittest and strongest person can strain a muscle, but people who are physically active tend to have lower rates of back pain. So next time you're lifting a box or a child, reaching for a snack in the pantry, or practicing your golf swing pain-free, you'll thank yourself for devoting a few minutes every day to your back.
Dr. Nick, it's currently whale watching season across Australia. It runs from April to November every year, and it's where the east coast of the country comes alive with migrating humpbacks heading north to mate and calve.
And there's nothing quite like watching a whale breaching the surface to perform their amazing acrobatics. And you can even see it in Sydney Harbour.
They are so majestic, aren't they?
Yeah, and now the Maori King and the leaders across the Pacific are trying some new steps to help protect them.
Dr. Nick, they've actually signed a declaration to recognise them as legal persons, so to give them the same rights, such as the right of movement, to improve their environment and to also increase their population.
Yeah, because commercial whaling still does occur in some places worldwide, despite a moratorium being brought in 1985. So it's hoped that this new legal person recognition, which sounds a bit weird, but we think it'll help their protection.
Well, Nick, that doesn't come soon enough, does it? So from protecting the treasures beneath the ocean to looking after ourselves from within, here's a new exercise therapy that's all about connection.
There's times where we all need some nurturing and guidance to help get us through tough times, but some of us hold on to underlying emotional experiences that may manifest in the body as tension or pain. That's where somatic therapy comes in. It's a holistic approach that focuses on the connection between the mind and the body in addressing trauma, stress, and emotional baggage through movement, breath, and touch. Somatic. It's a word I'm starting to hear a lot more now, but what does it actually mean?
Well, soma means the body, and so we live in a world where most of us just operate from the head up, so the brain. But yeah, there's a whole lot of work now tending towards acknowledgement that unless we release what's stored in the body, the head will just keep going and going and going. Okay, so this process is called the wood chopper, and you'll discover why when we work through it. So we, first of all, bring our hands together and we clap the hands like that. Beautiful. So we take a 3-part inhale, and as you do, the arms move up. So it would look like this. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. We pause, then we take another sip and the arms draw all the way up. Excellent. Maybe you give the hands a squeeze and you clench the bottom, and then everything comes out as you open the mouth and we fall down. That's it. And straight into the next one.
Okay. And do people normally yell?
Everybody yells.
Okay. So what would you describe then as a somatic experience?
Well, that's a very big question. So somatic experiencing was founded by Dr. Peter Levine, who is a very traditional psychiatrist. But Dr. Levine discovered probably 30, 40 years ago that whilst we can sit in the therapy room and talk and talk and talk and talk some more, unless we're actually releasing stress and trauma that's stored deep in the body, the soma, we really won't heal. So the influx of somatic work these days really stems from his work, in the 70s. We did an open mouth, try closed mouth, clap the hands, straighten the arms as much as you can. Beautiful. Can you now, we'll start to contract before we breathe in. That's it. Excellent. Okay. Yes, inhale. Inhale, pause, take another inhale and release, open the mouth and let it go. So what felt better?
I think I preferred the second one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think about your nervous system. It's this like intricate, very ancient system inside of you, and it governs everything. So it governs your breath, your heart rate, your digestion. And without going into human biology lesson, essentially your nervous system answers 3 questions. Am I safe? Am I loved? And what do I think? And so the first question, am I safe? It answers in under 1/4 of a second. And that is why we're all walking around a little bit on edge. The answer to that question is no, a lot of the time, even when we are safe. And release, open mouth, if you can, that's it. So when we do these somatic release processes, it can come out in various ways, screaming, crying, numbness. So sometimes it's actually nothing because even just the notion of release work is too scary for a nervous system. This time I'd like you to stay down. And so we integrate the release. The nervous system is not designed to be calm and, you know, just relaxed all the time. That's not the aim. It's to fluidly go between states. And so we teach how to have more influence over those states. And release down however you like. Can you soften the head to the bolster, unclench the hands, maybe draw the hips back to the ankles. And just notice what now starts to come up.
I could cry.
Could cry.
Slowly.
You know, the thing about the soma body is that it sends you little messages all the time, but we often don't listen to them. And so usually what happens is that people come into these sorts of spaces when the body's started to scream at them. And by that, I mean, you know, something's breaking down. There's so much research into the effect of trauma in the body and its impact on chronic pain, inflammation, digestion, fibromyalgia, autoimmune. It all is linked back to how we store, release, process trauma and stress. So most of the people who walk into these spaces, it's almost gone too far. But this work is amazing in being able to repair and release. We're here for about 30 more seconds. Hands above the head now. That's it.
Although some somatic experiences are one-on-one, in your environment you actually do it in a group, which I find fascinating. Is there ever any reservation on people, you know, being vocal or emotional?
There is a lot, and so it's why the format in a one-on-one is so different to a group. I keep the group classes really surface level, and my intention or my hope in the group classes is really just to give people a couple of different techniques so that when they walk out of the room, they understand how to tap into their body and what's going on. I have some tears in the group's classes. I have some tears, I have some screaming, but we also have to be careful. Some people hate noise. Good in the body, you might like to...
It's becoming a lot more common these days to talk about therapy and how important it is for us to live our best lives, but there's so many different types of therapy out there, it's really hard to know where to begin. Now, I've definitely done plenty of talk therapy in my life and I've loved it. This somatic experience is a little bit different in that it was less about talking in this environment and more about making noises and moving. But what I can say is what I achieved in such a short amount of time with a somatic experience was really profound if I compare it to maybe talking for over an hour about some of my problems. So if you're a little bit curious about experiencing with different types of therapies, maybe this one could yield a result that you've never experienced before.
I think it goes without saying that every long-lasting and flawless makeup look starts with the skin. And one of my biggest concerns that I see is dehydration and dryness. Now, if this is you, all is not lost. It all begins with our skincare routine. Introducing the new Asano Hydration Plus range, which centers around their iconic rosehip oil, delivering intensely hydrated, dewy and glowing skin. Let's look at the certified organic rosehip oil containing 99.5% pure organic rosehip oil, making it one of the few pure oils available. Its cult status has been secured as it takes the title of #1 rosehip oil in Australasia. It has new look packaging, but it is still the same amazing formulation. I love my moisturizers, and the new range also includes a daily facial moisturizer. With its list of superstar ingredients, 4 molecular weights of hyaluronic acid, ceramides, rosehip oil, and shea butter, it's clinically proven to deliver 66% rapid and multi-depth hydration. Having a good skincare regime is just another way of taking good care of ourselves. It's an investment for life.
Thanks to beauty expert Rushi Page there on how to keep our skin hydrated. Now, Jack, back to the Paris Olympics. We can't get enough of it. Here's some trivia for you. Did you know there are 600 people work at the Eiffel Tower every day?
Oh, imagine that place being your workplace. Could you imagine what beautiful views? Did you know? I've got lots of facts. The Eiffel Tower was built in 1889. It was meant to be a temporary structure, and 130 years later, it's still magnificent and it's still standing.
More trivia for you. Did you know there's only ever been one stop sign in the whole of Paris? If you know the Paris traffic, you wouldn't be surprised by that at all, but they got rid of it.
One stop sign, now they have none, and there's 6,000 streets in Paris, and the shortest one is just 5.75 metres long. Basically experts on Paris.
Oh, yeah. Take us there.
Please, now.
Please, anyone. Well, one thing that is often on our minds when we're about to go on a big trip is how do we legally and safely travel with medications? Here's resident pharmacist Naomi Perry with all of the answers.
Plan ahead, make sure that you travel with enough medication to last the entire trip and a little bit extra just in case of any delays. Check the legal requirements for the country that you're travelling to make sure that it's okay to travel with your medication. Keep the medications in the original packaging and keep the labels intact. And declare your medications as you enter so customs don't stumble upon it and ask questions. And if you're travelling to a country with less access to refrigeration, pack a cooler. And lastly, make sure that your medication is in your carry-on. The last thing that you want to do is have that medication in your checked-in luggage, only for it to be lost. If you're travelling overseas for a long period of time, your pharmacist can dispense more medications, not just 1 or 2 prescriptions. This is why it's so important to have a great relationship with your pharmacist and GP so that when you need special dispensing requirements, your GP can prescribe it and your pharmacist can dispense it. The last thing that you want to do is cross a border with medication that you really need, only for it to be confiscated. If you're travelling for long periods of time, it's important to make sure that you check the quantity is okay with the country that you're travelling to. Also, get a letter from your GP that outlines the medication that you're taking and that it's for personal use. This is so common for airport pharmacies. Luckily, with technology these days, pharmacists can contact your local pharmacy or GP to obtain a copy of the prescription. If it's outside of hours, pharmacists can also dispense medications through emergency or continued supply to make sure you're not without medications.
Joe, I think all of us as parents are concerned about the amount of screen time our kids are having. And I have to say, I think for modern parents, it's the biggest challenge we all face.
Oh, in our house, it remains one of our biggest challenges. And the latest research shows that Australian kids are missing out on more than 1,100 adult words a day. That's 200 conversations due to screen time. That's really alarming.
It is. And when you think about it, if your kids are constantly on their screens all the time, you're not really in conversation with them. They're not developing their brains in the ways that we would have hoped they would have been.
Oh, yeah, and these are the conversations that bring new words, new meaning, new understandings of the world, new language developing. It's really, really alarming. The World Health Organisation's guidelines recommends no more than 1 hour screen time for toddlers.
And the Australian guidelines suggest that kids under 2 should have 0 screen time at all, which makes sense to me, but there's so much screen opportunity around. It's an incredibly hard thing to monitor and to try and work your way through.
Oh, absolutely. I have a huge amount of compassion for parents because it is that, that technology balance minefield, which is just like the difficulty around healthy eating, So you sort of have to find the approach that is right for you. Thankfully, we have Zoe to help us out at least with the healthy eating aspect. Here she is with her exotic tomato salad.
The cooler weather always has me craving hearty, filling recipes that warm the soul. Just like my roasted tomato garlic with labna and herb salad. Preheat the oven to 160 degrees Celsius and load up the tomatoes. Roasting intensifies their flavour and helps absorb all the glorious seasonings. Lemon thyme, cumin, and don't forget garlic, but keep the skin on. It's not just about the tomatoey flavour. These little darlings are packed with vitamin C and antioxidants, supporting many areas of health from the heart to the prostate. 20 to 30 minutes and the mix will be a perfect golden brown. For the salad, I'm loving the combo of basil and parsley. They bring a sweet, tangy taste that challenges the earthy tomato garlic mixture. Add a squeeze of lemon juice for a bit of extra zest. And then bring it all together. Labna gives a certain coolness to this dish. Add a topping of dukkha for another texture crunch. There are a few moving parts to this recipe, but trust me, when you get everything on your fork, effort equals reward. Get Nourished is brought to you by Go Healthy, Go Prostate Support 1 a day. For supporting healthy prostate function, healthy urine output and reproductive system health in healthy males. It feels good to go healthy.
Well, today has been all about mobility and movement with a distinctly international flair from the Paris Olympics and now to Milan, where a design exhibition is celebrating the humble walking cane.
Oh, I'm all over this. This is called Triennial Milano, and it's this amazing exhibit, as you say, Joe, featuring canes and walking sticks from 18 international designers. You know I love my fashion.
You do. And Jack, this is a look at the evolution of walking aids over time. What started as a cruelly made stick to, in some cases now, a symbol of power and great wealth.
Yeah, and I love this, Darcy, because the event also looks at some of the emotions evoked by the humble walking stick, particularly pity for the elderly. And it's a fascinating look at this everyday but essential item.
Hoping I'm not going to need a walking stick anytime soon, Jack. That's all we've got time for today. On that note, thanks to Dr. Luke Carr, Jacqui, Felgate and Joe Stanley.
Make sure you check out the House of Wellness Radio every Sunday with Gerald Quigley and Luke Hines.
Thanks to our friends at Chemist Warehouse. It's bye for now.